how's it going? This week, I wanted to talk to you guys about cultivating self-love and acceptance. So I'm going to be sharing a combination that I put together using Bach Flower Remedies. It's an 11 flower combination. Okay, so let's just jump right in. So typically, I look up different symptoms that are associated with whatever it is I'm trying to create a combination for. So what I did with the self-love and acceptance is I looked at the ways that it shows up internally and externally, right? So the internal symptoms that I wanted to share were that I looked at when putting this combination together were the internal symptoms were feeling worthless, unloved, or unwanted, obsessively fearing failure, a belief in own inability with no evidence to support this belief, right? Feeling like you don't belong, imposter syndrome, feeling your accomplishments are accidents, right? Luck, or that you're just undeserving of them, right? Frequent negative self-talk, feeling like you're a burden, and always doubting or second guessing yourself. So those are some internal things that you may struggle with when there's a lack of self-love or acceptance, right? So then the external symptoms that we'll be dealing with basically is a lack of personal boundary setting, people pleasing, saying yes to everything and to everyone, right? People pleasing. Difficulty making new friends or being highly dependent on existing friendships or friends. Conflict avoidance, not going for what you want, not asking for what you need. Disempowering body language, like slumped shoulders, and protective postures. Always, I think, we all may have seen this or even at times feel it yourself when with certain postures or body language that people have, you can, kind of pick up insecurities with certain things. I always try to remind myself to put my shoulders back for that reason, honestly. And it's something that I think about. Okay, so social withdrawal and social anxiety. Right? So these are the internal and external symptoms of having a lack of self-love or self-acceptance. Okay, so like I said, there's an 11 flower combination, and if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's hit this list, right? Okay, so the first flower that I put in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is Agrimony, right? So Agrimony is going to help us to become aware of and articulate our emotions. So that way we can better understand our feelings, right? About ourselves, and then attempt to get to the root of what our issues are, what's really causing our lack of self-acceptance, excuse me. So Agrimony is going to give us the ability to deal with conflicts and confrontation in a healthy manner, and to help us release the self-conscious worry of what others think of us, right? So, I mean, it's almost really self-explanatory. I don't really know what else I could give to that. It's important when trying to, so when cultivating self-love and acceptance, right? I think it's important to first admit that there is a lack there. And it's important to be able to identify how that shows up, right? So if you can get in touch with your emotions, then you can understand why you feel the way you feel about certain things, and why those things may make you feel insecure, or maybe the root of where your insecurities are coming from, right? Yeah. So we can understand ourselves and where this lack or this feeling of lack is really stemming from. So I like it. Agrimony. That was number 1. Again, the same as always. I put them in alphabetical order just for organizational purposes, not because one is more important than the other, or is, they're not in order of importance. Okay, so the second flower in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is Centaury. Centaury is for those of us that tend to become servile, right? And that act to please other people. Centaury will give us the self-regard to say no when it's appropriate, and will allow for us to just become aware of our personal needs and promote the nourishment. Sorry, not agrimony. We're on Centaury. Centaury will help promote this desire within us to nourish ourselves and nourish our own personal needs. Right. Once we become aware of them, we can actually take care of them. Centaury will encourage self-determination, assertiveness, and trust in one's good judgment. So again, if we have this lack of self-love and acceptance, I would argue, there's a lack of determination probably, right? And okay, let's gather ourselves. So we're cultivating self-love and acceptance. So, I mean, if you are willing to let people take advantage of you, walk all over you, if you're afraid to tell people no when it's necessary, yes when it's necessary. If you have issues with those things, I know it's so hard for us to say, I don't love myself, because when you think of it, it sounds crazy. But those are not loving traits, right? You're not being loving to yourself. If that was your friend and they were doing this, not saying no when they needed to, allowing people to take advantage of them. I think as a friend, all of us would say, yo, like, this isn't cool. You deserve better than this, or something, right? And so a lot of times we're not friends to ourselves. And so for me, that was a good way of looking at it and trying to determine where I was at with my self-love and acceptance, right? So I looked at it like, okay, as a friend, I could I could say why I love my friend and what's so like dope about her. But then when it came to myself, it was not as easy, right? To say why I think I'm so great or what's amazing about me, things like that. It wasn't as easy for me to come up with things. And so then I had to look at it that way, to start thinking of myself as a friend and what qualities that I personally had that would make me a good friend. And so I had to start looking at myself in that way, like, okay, we're friends now. We're friends now, and I'm trying to see if you're a good friend, basically. And so I started to just work at being a good friend to myself, really. Is how I got on the journey to self-love and acceptance. So I think that looking at this Centaury, and it's talking about, letting people take advantage of you, having a hard time saying no, not being assertive enough, which was something I definitely had an issue with myself, and trusting your own judgment. I think a lot of times that people fall back and let other people lead them and take over, or are afraid to speak up about their opinions, and because they don't really trust their judgment. We don't want to be wrong, or because I chose this or I wanted to do that, now things are ruined and it's all my fault. I don't know. So I think those are things that I personally have struggled with. So I thought that Centaury would be a great one to have in the combination for self-love and acceptance. You got to say no. You got to be able to say no. You got to be. You got to. Okay. So that's Centaury. So the third flower in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is cherry plum. Cherry plum will allow us to begin to move away from obsessive fear or any delusions that's clouding our self-perception. and therefore enabling us to tap into our subconscious, which in turn will help us to integrate any new insights that we need to integrate any new insights into our daily lives, right? So, fear. So we have to move away from the fear. Fear stops us from doing so many things. Fear is probably like the cause of just so much crap. Let's just leave it at that. Fear. It's a big one, right? So what we really want to do is just to settle that, because it's hard to really look at yourself, right? To be honest with yourself, to say, I haven't really been taking care of myself or looking out for myself or really showing myself love, right? We haven't been doing that. So it's going to help us to not be afraid of being honest with ourselves, right? Not to fear what we're going to find when we start to dig deep. And it's really going to help us, like we said, to clear those delusions that are keeping us from really seeing ourselves and perceiving ourselves authentically, or as we truly are. Like, somebody could tell you something about yourself and it's like, what? Like how they view you or how they experience you. And it could be like, oh my goodness, me? And it's because we have this clouded perception. We think that other people are just so amazing and we're just whatever. And so, so it's really going to help us tap in so that we can really see ourselves truly. And then anything we learn about ourselves, right? Like, I'm not very good at coming up with examples, but so I'm not going to try. So let's just say, you come up with something. I would have these revelations of like, oh my gosh, that is how I am. Oh my gosh, I have been doing that, right? So when you have those moments, it's easy to like want to retract on that. Like, no. Like, I do that. Then it's like, what? But, or, you got to be honest with yourself. So Cherry Plum is going to help us not be afraid of being honest and truthful with ourselves, not afraid of really seeing ourselves, right? And then once we really truly see ourselves, it's going to help us integrate it into our daily lives. So once we know we've been doing something that's really hindering us from moving forward on our journey, or is really messing up our self-esteem. Maybe we're keeping relationships, or with Centaury, we're doing things to people please, and we realize, damn, that's what I've been doing. I don't want to do that anymore. Cherry Plum is going to help us integrate those new things that we want to integrate, right? So on this whole journey, you'll be integrating all kind of things, so it's just going to be helpful all the way around. Okay, so that's Cherry Plum. The fourth flower in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is crabapple. So crabapple will help those of us who are obsessed with or like repelled by what we see as bad or just not good enough within ourselves. And for those who just believe themselves to be unattractive and like focus a lot on their physical flaws, right? Feeling self-conscious about your appearance, anything like that. You think others are judging you. Crabapple is going to help us just get away from those thoughts, right? To again with Cherry Plum helping us to become less clouded in our perception of ourselves. Then with the crabapple, we'll be able to once we can see ourselves more clearly, we'll be able to stop with thinking we're unattractive. We'll be able to see everybody is beautiful, and that's real. I truly believe that. Am I attracted to everybody? That's a different story, right? But so that we can start to see our own beauty in not just physical ways, but in ways of, like I said before, your personality, of being able to see just the things that are amazing about yourself. Because like I always say, nobody's all bad, right? So even the most terrible person, has some positive qualities. And so, let's focus on our positive qualities and not our flaws, right? So crabapple is just going to help us get away from that negative thinking about ourselves, and feeling like we're not good, or not even feeling like we're not good enough, because I have something for that too. But feeling that certain qualities about ourselves make us not good enough. If that makes sense. It might be the same thing, but it felt and sounds different to me. It's one thing to just think, I'm just not good enough. And then the other thing with like what I feel with crabapple is like, let's say, oh, my nose is big. I'm not pretty because of that. And I'm not good enough because of that. Is how I look at it, rather than just, who am I to have these things, right? Because we could have those, like, you cannot have like these insecurities of your physical, right, and still not feel good enough just because of whatever's going on internally, right? It doesn't have to be physical appearance. Okay, so but crabapple is more focused on that physical flaws and things that we're repelled by within ourselves. Okay, I feel like I'm like running through these, but they're really self-explanatory to a certain extent. Okay, Impatiens, and I feel like I'm trying to like find things to say, but anyways, okay. The fifth flower in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is Impatiens, or patience. Patience with yourself, patience with the process, patience for your journey. Always, always, always. It just, things take time, and we would like to move through things as quickly, right? Like, let's get on with it. But patience is important. And Impatiens also is going to like reduce stress levels, and frustration, and, just really trying to work through anything can be frustrating. But something that's so, it's not tangible. It's so that can become really frustrating. Like, am I seeing things? Am I even seeing things clearly? All of that can get really frustrating. But again, we have our cherry plum, or not cherry plum, sorry, crabapple, helping us to no, I was right when I said cherry plum. Oh gosh. Okay. I was just all over the place. I wasn't right when I said crabapple. I wasn't right when I said cherry plum. Centaury. It's helping us trust our good judgment. Okay. I'm gonna just stop and go on to the next one. So number 6 in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is pine. So pine addresses any feelings of guilt, right? Self-blame, any harsh self-criticism. Pine's gonna help is gonna help us find ourselves. It's gonna help us when we find ourselves like perpetually discontented with what our efforts are, right? With our results. It's going to help us find a way to be content with where we are in life, on our journeys with this process, right? But yeah, when we're just always discontented with what we're doing, when we're just too hard on ourselves, for perfectionists, right? Pine will enable us to release, release any guilt and feelings of self-reproach, right? So we were just being repelled by things that we deem bad or not good enough within ourselves, right? And that was crabapple. And so the pine is going to help to just solidify that, to really to help us release those feelings, right? So we have the crabapple. Helping us address those, and then pine's going to help us release those feelings, right? So pine will bring into our awareness our right to exist and our worthiness of love, and will encourage self-acceptance and self-forgiveness. Self-forgiveness is a big one. When you start to go through really looking at yourself and trying to see yourself clearly, it's an up and down process because we're on this journey to self-love and acceptance, but you got to kind of go through and sift through and be honest about the things that maybe aren't so great about yourself, but at the same time knowing that the awareness, first of all, right, that's like the start, and the fact that you're aware of those things um is like a big step, and it's very important, right? So you once you become aware of them, it's easier. I'm sorry, I forgot where I was going with this. So you become aware of these things. Oh, okay, that's what I was saying. So once you become aware of maybe how you really been showing up in the world, you could feel guilty or just down on yourself. Like, gosh, I can't believe all this time I thought maybe even it was that person that was doing this to me, and now I see clearly the role I played, or maybe I was the cause of it all. Those things could really make you could cause you to get down on yourself. So pine's going to help us balance that out during this process, right? And I think forgiving ourselves during that, when you say, oh, maybe that previous relationship, I always thought it was because this person, this is not a personal example, it's just an example, this person cheated on me, but now I see them cheating was really you know uh attributed to all the hell I had been giving them the whole 2 years prior or something. You know what I mean? It's just to really look at yourself is a hard thing to do, and it could make you feel pretty crappy for a little while. But the thing is to, like I said, know that the awareness of it is the start. Once you become aware of something, it is easy to just push it to the back of your mind and to say fuck it, and to move forward. But it is also easier to work at it once it comes into your awareness. I always say, you can't unknow what you know, right? Okay, so it's bringing into our awareness. This is pine. It's bringing into our awareness our right to exist and our worthiness to love. Our worthiness, well, look, I said to love, but right, of love. Um, our worthiness to be loved, and I think to give love as well, right? But yeah, it encourages self-acceptance and self-forgiveness. Forgive yourselves. Okay. Number 7 in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is rock rose. So rock rose is going to help curb any imagined fears. And I like rock rose. I use it a lot in the combinations because imagined fears. I mean, that could be anything. We imagine, we have beautiful imaginations, right? It's a beautiful manifesting tool, right? But it can also be a crazy making tool because we can just create scenarios and situations that will keep us from moving forward, from keep us from doing the things that are important to us, keep us from doing the things that we are passionate about. I mean, we will create these things in our minds that will just really hinder our growth. And so I like to use it. So anything you're imagining, oh, if I do that, something that perhaps you're really passionate about, that it would be a self-honoring choice to decide to go move forward with it, but maybe you aren't doing it because, if I do that, then I'll get I told you I'm so bad at coming up with examples, and then I just feel a little right now. Okay, let's use a personal example. Me doing this channel. I'm gonna put my stuff out there, but then I have all these. If I do this channel, then I'm gonna get flower essence people are gonna come for me because you only they typically say take only so many flowers at a time, and because they say that they don't really do general combinations that often, stuff like that. So I just made up this whole thing, like people gonna come for me, people gonna be mad, or I'm gonna have the you just start to make up all these things that will happen if you do this thing, right? Which doing the thing would be one of the most self-loving things that you could do for yourself, right? Self-honoring. I'm big on self-honoring choices, right? So I hope that example made sense. Right? So imagine fears. Rockwater is trying to help us just get out of our heads, stop making up things, and so that we can really address what it is keeping us from really accepting and loving ourselves, keeping us in this lack mentality, right? So that's rock rose. So the eighth flower in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is rock water. So rock water is for when we expect just too much of ourselves, when we're too hard or too critical of ourselves and others. It's for when we tend to suppress our inner needs while like excessively doing things for other people, right? Rock water will allow us to be respectful of our physical and spiritual inner needs, and when it's appropriate to tend to either our inner or outer or external needs, when it's appropriate to tend to each need, like you're not taking care of your spiritual needs and ignoring any physical issues that you may be having, right? So knowing when it's appropriate and what needs to be addressed. Suppressing our inner needs while excessively doing for others. I mean, that's like same with Centaury, with the people pleasing, right? So we can stop focusing on other people, helping other people, what other people may think about us, and then now we can, turn that focus onto ourselves, and not in a selfish way where it's like forget everybody else, right? Be helpful to people, but not to your own detriment. That's like the main thing. Like helpful, be of service, all that you can, but don't do it to your own detriment, or to where it gets to a point where you are just fully drained of your reserves. Because that's not self-loving, right? You only have so much energy. If you give it all to others, what do you have for yourself, right? And your highest good will be what's in the highest good for all of humanity. And when I say that, not that what's good for you is good for this person too, but you pursuing your best and being the best that you could be is just pursuing the best for humanity at the same time, right? Michael Jackson. Looking. I say Michael Jackson because Man in the Mirror, right? I always think of that. Okay. So that was Rockwater. Number 9 on my list, or well, it's not a list, my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is Scleranthus. So Scleranthus will help help us stop just second guessing our choices, actions, and decisions. It's going to bring clarity. It will allow for the integration of newly discovered dimensions of self. right? So, like how we were saying, to integrate any new insights, Scleranthus is going to further help us to not only, what we discovered during the process, to integrate it as well. Also, with this journey of self-love and acceptance being so like up and down emotionally, Scleranthus will help to stabilize our moods, which is great. Okay, clarity. Again, clarity so that you can see you and anybody else, because in this self-loving journey, it also could relate to our relationships. Are we in relationships that that serve us? Are we in relationships that build us up, right? Or are we in relationships that tear us down and really make us feel worse about ourselves and make it more difficult for us to love and accept ourselves, right? So, Scleranthus. Okay, so the 10th flower in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is white chestnut. So white chestnut is for persistent unwanted thoughts and inner dialogues that we are unable to cease. So it helps with any inner conflict or fear of conflict in general. And so white chestnut will quiet and calm our that restless mental chatter, when it's just going, going, going. Especially if the mental chatter is negative, negative self-talk, right? We talked about negative self-talk earlier, but yeah, you're trying to go to sleep and your mind's just racing with all the things you have to do, that type of repetitive thinking, right? And so a lot of times this inner conflict that happens could just be an inner conflict with yourself. You might decide, okay, I'm going to do this thing because I'm good at this and it'll be good, and I'm sure it'll go well. And then maybe shortly after, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm sorry. Somebody came in and it just like threw me off. Like, I just, I'm new to this, okay? So it just kind of threw me off and I didn't know what to do for a second. And I'm not going to re-record it and I am not going to edit it. So we are going to keep moving. And so what were we saying? So white chestnut's going to quiet and calm the restless mental chatter, allowing the mind to function clearly and efficiently. So, um, I I'm sorry. That just really threw me off. I don't even know what I was saying. But oh, okay. I was talking about the inner conflict. I'm gonna do this thing. I'm good at it. It will go well. And so I'm gonna do this. You have that thought, but then you have this inner push and pull, right? Okay, yeah, you good at that thing, but who are you to think that you're gonna do it? You think people are gonna remember it? You think it's gonna happen? You start to just tear yourself down. All of a sudden, that thing you believed that you were good at and capable of, now you've convinced yourself that you were silly to even think about it, right? So we're gonna calm and quiet these thoughts that are constantly trying to convince us otherwise, right? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that was white chestnut. Unwanted thoughts. We don't want any negative thoughts about self, right? And so that's what it is that we're trying to shut down, really, with white chestnut. And not, I mean, it's not going to come in and just shut your thoughts down, but it's going to help us calm the mind so that then these obsessive thoughts, maybe they aren't racing, right? And it's easier to say, yo, that's not mine. My professor, Starla Lewis is her name. Well, she's not my professor now, but she was a professor that I had years ago. And she would say that she would use her thought eraser. So if a thought that was maybe, self-effacing or negative, if it would come through, she would catch it and she would visualize her thought eraser. Like, that's not my thought. And she would get rid of it. And so that's what it's making me think of. If we can think more clearly and more calmly, there's not just so many thoughts just racing through our minds that we aren't able to observe our thoughts, right? Because they're moving so quickly. And so with the white chestnut calming and slowing our minds down, we'll be able to observe our thoughts more clearly so that we can, decipher what thoughts are positive and which ones are negatively affecting our self-perception. Okay, again, I hope this is all making sense. Okay, so the 11th and final flower in my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance is wild oat. So wild oat will allow us to see and recognize our own potential. Wild oat motivates us to discover and live our purpose and to manifest our true goals and values into our realities. I mean, how could you not love on you and accept you when you live in your purpose, right? Manifesting your true goals and values into your reality. Wild oat, I call it like the purpose flowers to help you, or the vocational, I think it's typically called it, but I called it the purpose flower because what are we here to do, right? And I think that one of the things that's something that really helps with your confidence and self-love is having something that makes you a value. And I say that not to say that you're valueless. All life has value, right? All of us have value, but when you're living a purposeful life and you feel like you're adding something of value to society, to your community, to your families, to the world, right? And that's what wild oat is going to really help you figure that out, right? We're coming through, we're taking the Centaury so we can trust our judgment. We're seeing ourselves more clearly with Scleranthus and cherry plum, and being able to sift out what it is that is keeping us from really loving and accepting ourselves, right? Again, I said earlier about the friend thing. Like, are you a good friend to yourself? Like, if your friend was going through something, you wouldn't be like, yeah, girl, you dumb. And you really aren't worthy of that. And you should just stop and give it up because you're never going to make it, or nobody's ever going to buy that. You would never talk to your friend that way. And if you did, you probably wouldn't have very many friends, right? So, I encourage you to look at what type of friend you are to yourself. The negative self-talk, all those types of things are number one things that affect your personality. Your personality, your self-esteem. Cat Williams, I remember in his comedy special, he said, how I mess up your self-esteem, it's called self-esteem. Like, I'm not going to use the curse words, and it's been a while, so I don't remember the joke that, perfectly. But really, it's your self-esteem. And we let all of these external factors determine how we feel about ourselves within. And that's where we get screwed up. You got to start in there and then come out. Start within. What is it internally that's keeping me from fully, loving and accepting myself? And then look at what external factors in my life are contributing to this Is it people? Is it, you know, is my home, just not a place that makes me feel good? Those certain things like that could, affect our self-love and acceptance. Yeah, what kind of friend are you being to yourself? This it's also making me think of times where, you think people who don't love themselves, like, don't like themselves. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not just, I think I'm unattractive, or it's not that obvious thing, this lack of self-love. Like, just because self-care is a big deal. Self-love, self-care, it's talked about a lot today. But, like, just because you make sure that you're put together and you go to your spa days and you get them nails and toes done and you keep your hair up and all those types of things, it doesn't mean that you love yourself. It's not just about what you look like, or the self-loving things. That all leans towards, for me, consumerism and a lot of vanity, honestly. So again, it's not just those physical uh, surface level things. You got to get deep, deep in there, right, and figure out the roots. I'm gonna go. I got people here. I said I was filming, but they have no regard, and so it's distracting. I went through the whole list. I hope it was helpful, and I hope it was helpful. I really do. Love you, accept you, because if you don't, nobody else will. No matter what, you're amazing. Know that, find that, trust that, believe that, hold on to that, right? Um, so that pretty much does it for me. That's my combination for cultivating self-love and acceptance. More importantly, I'd like to hear from you guys. Did these flowers in this combination resonate with you? Would you try any of them? Would you try the combination? Let us know in the comments section. Yeah. Until next time, I'm out.